Welcome to the AI Security Update, where we discuss the latest in AI and security. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest for this episode, Fredrick Wahome. Welcome to the show, Fredrick.
So thank you very much again. Thank you for hosting me. It's an honor and a privilege. I'm Fredrick Wahome from Nairobi, that is in Kenya, based in Africa. I'm a cybersecurity expert for the last 15 years. I'm also a vice president at Kenya Cybersecurity and Forensics Association, which have existed for the last 10 years. Apart from that, I run a company that support customers, SMEs in securing their solutions. And we also have a mentorship where we take young people who have graduated from our universities and we assist and support them as they transition from the school to the industry.
Yes, so definitely a very interesting background because you're involved with the cybersecurity community, providing mentoring, and also you have your own company as a consultant providing solutions. What are some of the challenges that you've seen in the AI security space?
Looking at now coming from Africa as a continent, currently we have seen a rapid growth when it comes to the internet and technology. We have seen high adoption of tech within the African continent, where almost over 90% of the people they have access to a smartphone, especially in Kenya. Also, the cost of internet has somehow gone down, meaning that many people are able to go to the internet and they can also be able to access basic and essential services, especially to do with government. And if you look at it at the top level, most of institutions across the board, they have been able to establish foundation to facilitate access to technology. So the society is able to access services which are online. They are able to communicate and they're able to push their livelihood. So looking at it now from the AI, this being somehow at infancy stage, looking at Africa as well, we can say that we are still at the formative stage where many people, yes, they have heard about AI. They are actually using AI without knowing. For instance, they have apps built on AI, but we are still continuing to build capacity.
Yeah, great point, because what I've seen is that people are using AI now everywhere. We all have AI tools. We can access them easily. And people just want the answers right away, the information right away, but they don't think about what's happening in the background. So I was actually giving a talk for Women in Data Science Worldwide and Google Developers Group. I was talking about agentic AI security. This was yesterday morning, actually, which was Saturday morning. And people were saying, wow, they've never heard about AI security because they're all focused on AI and AI implementations, but they've never had this conversation about AI security. So even in the developer space, in the technical space, we see the security professionals are advocating for AI security, but that messaging is not always going to the developers or to the users. So Fredrick, based on what you've seen, is there a specific security incident that happened related to AI security? This could be a current event or something you've seen that you think the public should know about.
So thank you very much. Coming from a cybersecurity perspective, and when you look at AI, for us, we look at it in two ways. Number one, we look at AI as a key resource that we can be able to utilize and leverage so that we can enhance the way we do security. For instance, as a certified ethical hacker, I have tools that I use to be able to enhance the quality of my customers' systems and services. So, for instance, let's say evaluating their security posture. So, there are specific tools that some of them are open source, meaning they are free and you can be able to access their source code. So, we are able to take advantage of these tools For instance, they make it possible and easier for us to be able to even reduce the timeline when we are doing and conducting some of these security assessments. On the other hand, we have AI itself as an ecosystem, AI as a technology. When you look at it from the context of securing AI itself, you have to understand some basic components. We are talking of models, we are talking of different frameworks, we are talking of the technology that is supporting the running of AI. So AI itself, those who are developing the AI systems, number one, they first need to know how to even secure the AI. Number two, the infrastructure upon which the AI systems are running, also they are at their, we can say their formative stage, because the need for AI to run, it requires high capacity, the data center, the need for power, especially for Africa, where we have challenges when it comes to power. In the month of July, one of the customers who are fintech, they are hosting their data on the cloud that is locally based in Kenya. And these specific virtual machines they are hosting, they were breached. And the breach was a ransomware. And when we were called upon to be able to respond, we were able to know that this specific attack was orchestrated by an AI system. How did you know? When you looked at the way the attack looked like, TPs, techniques, tactics, and procedures, which are the methodologies that one used to be able to breach or compromise a system. So you are able to see traces that gave us evidence that this attack was orchestrated by AI. And also they requested for certain amount of money. And you can imagine try now to start negotiating with an AI. But eventually, we knew that the AI, someone was behind that AI system. But the criminal was not the one who committed the real attack. It was powered by an AI system. So this is one of the very practical example that attacked an SME where their data was encrypted, but luckily there were backups that we used to be able to restore the system back. Meaning that AI is attacking real SMEs and it is being powered by a human being behind the same AI. But where we are going to see automated attacks where maybe there could be no any person behind the AI ecosystem.
So I think we see now with the rise of AI, people are using AI, like you mentioned, for very good things. For example, for pen testing systems. I had Philip Wiley on my show, and he was talking about using AI for penetration testing and to test the vulnerabilities of a system. And you brought up a really interesting point about the automated ransomware attack. And I think this was something called Jade Puffer. If you look it up online, it's spelled just Jade and then Puffer, like pufferfish. And basically, this is an attack which is fully automated, meaning no human is required to actually attack the system. You can just use AI and it attacks. And in the past, before Jade Puffer, we saw in the security industry that criminals were selling ransomware as a service. And Fredrick, you might know more about this too, but they were selling ransomware as a service. And this was impacting a lot of different markets. The UK NCSC had a report about this, I think a year or two ago, about criminals are providing ransomware as a service so that even if someone does not have the programming experience to actually code the ransomware, they can just click something and then the attack is executed for them. So it wasn't completely automated, but it was very easy for someone to do it. And now with Jade Puffer, like Fredrick is mentioning, it's fully automated, meaning that a person doesn't even need to click buttons or type anything. And the tactics, techniques, and procedures that you mentioned about the attacker doing certain things to attack the system. If someone listening is interested and maybe you don't have a cybersecurity background, I recommend looking at MITRE ATT&CK framework. So I'm going to spell it for the people that are not in cybersecurity. And of course, those in the field know what I'm talking about right away. But MITRE is spelled MITRE. And then you search MITRE and then attack. But instead of the second A, they have changed it to an and sign or an ampersand sign. But if you search that, then you can learn more about tactics, techniques, and procedures and what we do in cybersecurity to figure out how adversaries are attacking the system. And there are different phases of an attack, from reconnaissance to privilege escalation to compromising system. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out. So Fredrick, can we talk more about ransomware as a service? Just because what you mentioned reminded me of that.
So thank you for that. Yes, out of our experience and the experience that we had just a few weeks ago, it shows us that ransomware is evolving the same way our technology is also evolving. And one of the challenges that we have is that we are now seeing dedicated teams who are able to innovate so that they are able to drive ransomware as an attack. And they are also able to collaborate, meaning that they are able to share skills across the board compared to the defensive teams who are responsible in defending organizations. Most of the time, we are not able to collaborate so that we are able to empower ourselves and even share tools or even share some of this threat data. When you look at the criminals, the moment they want to offend or attack an organization, they are now shifting to such a model, ransomware as a service, where I can be able to, as a developer, I bring on board skills to develop the ransomware. If I run an infrastructure on the cloud, I can be able to give out access to this infrastructure. If I run, let's say, email services, which I can be able to use for phishing, to send phishing emails, I can as well donate this specific part of the infrastructure. And then they have the business developers who comes up with different structures on pricing, and they build a real business model. Then they specifically target specific organizations. Like this attack specifically targeted virtual machines that are in fintech as an industry. It is very dangerous, such that they have commercialized something like ransomware, and they are able to consolidate their effort and also the skill set that they have to make the process, the attack process, to somehow to be a bit easier. It is a call to action, especially for those who defend organizations. Now that we are in that dispensation of AI, where the attack that took 10 days for me to generate the attack, it is now taking less than 10 minutes. It is now upon us, the defenders, to also collaborate, not only just on talking, but even on skill set, being able to exchange information. Also, it is good for us to also understand that the moment this ransomware attack, if you do not have an offline backup, which is one of the things that I have seen apart over a period of time, if you do not have an offline backup process, most of the time you may lose all your information. Let's say you have access to a cloud, then you replicate your data to another cloud. The problem with these ransomwares that now are being powered by AI is that they will still attack any other process that is connected on the cloud. So the most secure, as we talk now, is for us to also consider having an offline backup model where the data is not connected to any part of the cloud or any part of the network infrastructure.
When these ransomware attacks are executed, sometimes people do pay the ransom to try to get their data back. And even when they pay the money to the criminals, they actually do not recover the data. And actually, this Jade Puffer attack, I saw on the article that it was constantly adapting and changing. So even when someone was to pay the ransom, the key would constantly change. And so then even when they pay the money, they still don't get their data back. So um, it's very important, like Fredrick, you're mentioning, to have an offline backup. It really depends on every organization, how they actually implement their architecture. But it's important to think about, if your organization is hit by a ransomware attack, what are your plans in place for incident response so that if it is hit by that, then you have a way to recover. And that's something in cybersecurity we talk about a lot, is incident response, and making sure you have something that you can actually follow when you are in a time of stress. And this is something I talked about with Larcy Robertson on my show. And she talked about how for incident response, you need maybe a couple of pages of a playbook to respond to when there is an incident. You need only a few pages to say, this is happening, what do I do? And that's it, instead of having very difficult instructions to understand. So again, it depends on the organization and the use case, but it's important to have a backup and to have a contingency plan in case something goes wrong. So Fredrick, you also mentioned something about the defenders need to be able to share the data and for threat intelligence sharing. Just curious, do you know of any organizations that do this or that you've been involved in?
So thank you very much. Allow me also to mention, you mentioned about incident response process, where these organizations are able to respond. But for them to be able to respond, they need to have prior arrangement where they need to be trained, they need to have teams already in place, so they need to have policies in place so that they are not going to panic the moment there's a cyber breach, and they're not going to do the wrong thing. And this is where we also can leverage AI, um, where AI can be able to, because for us to be able to respond maybe automatically to these cyber breaches, this is where we develop things like playbooks, which are just some operating procedures that tells us or instruct computers to do one, two, three upon noticing there is a cyber breach. So this is where we have seen and we are doing it. We are converting these playbooks into AI models, and we build intelligence within those models such that this model is able to detect potentially when attack happens, and the model, upon detection, the model is able to conduct specific actions or take specific actions that completely secures the network or the computer that has already been attacked, or it's been um, targeted by these attacks. So this is where we now use AI now to protect our information systems compared to AI being used again to orchestrate the same attacks. So looking at it from a place of threat sharing, again, we can be able to leverage on AI to automate the process of information sharing. Currently, we are working on a project that we are helping to build for our SMEs. We are helping them to build a honeypot ecosystem that is able to collect a lot of intelligence from the internet so that you are able to understand how are these cyber criminals targeting specific industry sectors. And the moment we have that, we are able to build specific information that we now share with our customers such that they know that in the month between August and December, potentially um, we might be targeted by a specific malware or specific threat. And we have open source solutions like malware information sharing platform. It is an open source solution that you can be able to leverage that helps you to consolidate information from different sources And some of this information is pushed by AI system. So the moment we now take advantage of AI is able to help us to fine tune this information, aggregate it, and package it in a form that any SME with just basic computer systems is able to receive this information. They can be able to manage it within their technology ecosystem and help to keep this organization safe. Remember, the intention of sharing this information is to make our organizations, like the SMEs that we serve, to make them to be proactive, such that before a ransomware attack, somehow they have a bit of clue or some insight, and that helps them to make them more secure and not have that reaction all the time after they have been attacked. So we are trying to do it to promote proactiveness into cybersecurity, and again taking advantage of AI as well.
Yes, that's very interesting. So using AI for threat intelligence sharing and to basically aggregate all of the data that you're seeing and suggest open source tools. So, Fredrick, what are your thoughts on using open source tools? Because I was talking with some other people and they were saying how sometimes open source tools are good because everyone can access them, but also sometimes open source tools have security vulnerabilities. And when people are using these open source tools, they might have some security vulnerabilities.
So a very good question. One of the things that we must be able to understand is there is a cost aspect when you are using technology. And most organizations, they may not have such huge investments when it comes to adoption of technology. Remember, they need to serve their people, they need to serve their customers, and also cost aspect are very key. So when you look at the open source, this is where different engineers can come together and they build a solution and they give out this solution at the open source license and agreement. And one of the key advantages to do with open source is the aspect of cost. There is the total cost of ownership is somehow lower compared to a closed source software. So one of the key advantage is the issue of cost. Number two, the solution also has access to the source code is accessible, meaning that if I have a developer, if I have a programmer who is well acquainted to coding and all that, then they are in a position to be able to assist me to enhance maybe the quality of the code. They can also help me be able to assess the security of the same system. But again, just like the way we have AI, so currently we have open source models, and some of these models, most of them they are not tested security wise. So you find someone, they download a model, they host it locally or on the cloud, and because they don't know and they don't have capacity to test security of the same, so someone take advantage of that, and maybe they have already tested that model, for instance, and they somehow heads up to breach or to use the same model to breach other organizations. So again, you must be careful. Let's say you have access to an information security system which is open source. You have to make sure that somehow you test so that you can know why is this system behaving this way. We have seen situations where you have our customers download solutions, applications, and they host them in their application, in their maybe their cloud. But they never knew that there are hidden malwares. They have hidden malwares in this source code. And one of the key elements is that you have to make sure that you understand the source code of this open source solution. But the more we adopt these open source solutions, the more we have a community that is able to test most of these solutions, the better for us, because we are going to promote adoption of these solutions as well as we lower the cost of adopting the technology.
Yeah, great point there. I think one of the main benefits of open source, or one of the main reasons people are using open source, is because of cost, because it's generally cheaper to use an open source tool versus building your own tool in-house. I know even with generative AI, everyone is having this build versus buy debate, is that should we just buy a generative AI system, or should we build our own AI system in-house? And sometimes in very secure environments, like think defense or military, they might choose to build their own system because in that environment, they care more about security than cost savings. But the general business, a small business or medium-sized business, someone that doesn't have many resources, they might use an open source tool because it's a lot cheaper than building their own tool. And then they hope to just focus and check for security vulnerabilities and issues later on, which Fredrick, you mentioned, right, that we need to also check these open source systems. Whenever you bring anything into your environment, as cybersecurity professionals, we always advise to check and to make sure that is secure. But I know in a lot of different companies, especially startups, they might focus more on just getting a product out there versus security. But it is very important to secure these systems, because especially when you're thinking about what could go wrong in an incident response perspective, some of these attacks can be very severe, like ransomware. Now, Fredrick, I just want to talk about the ecosystem in Africa, because you mentioned that at the beginning. So I know that globally we're working on AI security guidance, and I've talked with people from various countries, and everyone has their own perspective on AI security and AI governance. For example, the EU has the EU AI Act. In the US, we're talking about using the NIST AI risk management framework, or there's guidance from OWASP as well. But what are your thoughts on AI governance, and what have you seen locally and in Africa?
So looking at Africa in general, we only have about 17 nations out of 52 nations in Africa that have been able to enact cyber laws. And this does not mean that they have been able to implement. Out of 17, is about less than 10 that have been able to implement those cyber laws. We are talking of just the general cyber issues. Now, when we now talk about AI, it becomes a challenge. Why? Because we first have to transform from the normal cyber laws. Now think about AI, think about AI policies. Across Africa, we have less than 10 nations that have somehow come up with AI policies. So you can imagine, we give the cyber laws some time to mature, and we also give AI policy to mature. Until then, we will still continue to somehow be victims within African as a continent. But one thing that we are doing across the African region is to create this awareness as much as possible. We now have a standard that has been developed by ISO, the ISO 42001, that is able to secure AI ecosystem. And what we are doing, some of the organizations within Africa that have adopted AI, maybe for their business applications, we have started to talk to them to consider such a standard. We are also talking to them to develop internally to develop AI policies that talks about the technology and the security of AI. We are doing a lot of awareness, especially to the public, so that the public can be able to know. As a nation in Kenya, we have an AI policy. It is not yet, very comprehensive, but we feel it is a good starting point. As we do that, the Africans as a nation, we have signed up to collective laws as Malabo Convention, the Africa Union. They already have collectively. They have policies that they are working on. Some of them specifically talk about AI and how to secure AI and how to govern AI. But in summary, it is the high time that governments, the stakeholders, those who work around and along AI, the academic institutions, it is the high time that they come and formulate a policy that may be aligned with the international standards, but they are able to contextualize it to our local needs as a nation and also as a continent.
Oh, that's very interesting that you mentioned only 10 nations in Africa have a AI policy. And so that's definitely a consideration, is that not all the nations are thinking about cyber policy or AI policy. And AI security is complex because it's both, right? You need to have cyber policies in place, and then you need to adapt those cyber policies for AI systems. That's something I didn't know, that only 10 nations have AI policy. And you said less than 17 have a cyber policy. Is that correct?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes. Okay.
Cyber laws and policies as well.
Wow. Yes. Only less than 17 have cyber laws and policies. So yes, so definitely I think the work is more about education and awareness, but then some nations might not have the infrastructure or resources to develop cyber policies and AI policies. But I think even if we look at other countries, so for example, the EU, they're focused on AI Act and AI security. And so a lot of countries, what they're doing is they're adapting the EU AI Act to their own culture and their own needs.
Like now, coming from a technical cybersecurity expert, we currently have seen, or as they have come up with a vulnerability scoring system for the AI, such that the moment we are looking at a system purely done on AI, then we have a guiding standard which is somehow technical. So the same way when we are assessing or ask for web and looking maybe at the top 10, then you have a way that you can be able to score and to quantify most of AI-driven breaches and compromises. For instance, if you look at adversarial attack, how can we be able to quantify such an attack? So if me as a cybersecurity professional, and this is where more opportunities are coming up, especially for the the new entrant into cyber as a career. This is something that I can be able to encourage many young people to come into because we have seen new opportunities. So when maybe you are assessing an AI system and you want to look at an issue like adversarial attack, we now have a scoring system that, because the conventional models and the conventional frameworks somehow do not serve the needs for AI driven cyber breaches. So with such a new scoring system, it now helps us and it opens a new window for a new and emerging cybersecurity professionals who are not just very conventional, but they are well acquainted to AI. But one of the advice that we have been giving to, especially to the upcoming cyber professionals, is for them first to acquaint themselves with the concept on AI. So they have to understand, what do you mean by RAG? What do you mean by MCP? How do you host an AI model? What is a model? How do you secure a model? How do you use AI to secure the conventional cybersecurity? So this is just to say that new opportunities are coming.
What is advice that you have for the public so that they can learn about AI security, both as a consumer and also as a professional?
So a very big, good question, because we have this concept in cyber. It is not about if you'll be breached, it is about when. And when this comes, how well prepared are you? And this being a risk. So here we are, AI is with us. First, addressing the technical people, The same principle that we apply when you are developing normal solutions where we have security by design, security by default, let us also embrace the same thing. So number two, again, if let's say we are coming from a cyber perspective, where someone is able to assess and evaluate the security of AI ecosystem, one thing that I have learned over a period of time is for you just to simplify the process. You don't have to complicate the process of assessment, for instance. You'll be so surprised that most of the time when we look at AI ecosystem, trying to identify data poisoning, the injections and all that, you'll be so surprised that we don't struggle much. These are very basic things to do with configurations. Almost 80% of issues that we have always identified in AI ecosystems, they have to do with just normal issues to do with configurations. A system is talking to another system. Someone ignores that process, and before you know it, the data is compromised. Remember, AI is about data. So the reason why you are using AI is to simplify the process of access to the data. So if you are a cybersecurity practitioner, just try to learn as many concepts as possible. But when you are doing the assessment, do not complicate the process. Go for the normal steps. How is the process sanitization of data? How about um, um, for instance, granting permission to data? Can AI just access data without anything to do with permissions? So the very basic things, that is what you focus on. And now for the public who are not technical, you're already consuming AI. Develop your cyber hygiene. So think before you connect. If you are part of a family, talk about these things. If let's say you have kids, don't just dish out computers and mobile phones and tablets to them without really knowing what they are doing. They are chatting maybe through a chatbot. They are chatting with an AI. This AI can be weaponized, and it is start to introduce them to, or maybe to radicalize them, to teach them some funny stuff. So as a parent, make sure do not ignore. Make sure you learn. Make sure you have some cyber hygiene. Transfer the same to your children. At the family setup, do the same. At the corporate setup, let us have this as much as possible, creating consciousness amongst the people. Lastly, to the management and the board. For them, they need to understand their governance processes. Where do they plug into the entire process? Let them have an AI maturity roadmap, for instance, and ensure that they also consider security as part of it. You can start from as simple as an IT policy. Make sure that you mention AI within the IT policy. Then from there, mature it is integrate maybe AI security. Then, as you mature as an organization, have it as a separate document, AI policy stroke AI security policy. As you do that, start implementing those policies into the systems. And as you do that, you are going to embrace this emerging technology and draw value, maximum value without exposing your customers' data.
Yes, great points. So thank you so much, Fredrick, for being on the show.
So thank you very much for hosting me. And I want to invite people outside Africa. I want to invite them to Africa because potentially we have 1.5 billion people, users. These people will have a need to access technology. So when it comes to access to technology, the internet, the cost somehow is going down. So we are at a dispensation where there's a need for innovation, especially within the continent. And I want to appreciate you for hosting me. I don't take it for granted, and I look forward to more such sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fredrick, for being on the show. So this concludes our episode of the AI Security Update. We'll be back next time with more great conversations.
Thank you.